Hey everyone, and welcome back to Daily Tuition. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the basic understanding of style component. We will look at how the style component are useful to make React components and how we can use it in different React projects. So this tutorial is for all the beginners who want to use style component in their React projects. So let's get started and see what the style component is. Style component is a JavaScript library used to style React components. Using style component, we can enhance the CSS styling. So let's take a look at a very simple example to understand the difference between the standard CSS and the style component. I'm going to open the VS Code editor, and inside it, here I have the tutorial folder. Inside this, I'm going to make a React project. So to do that, I'm going to open my terminal, clear the screen. As you can see, I'm in my tutorial folder. Here I'm going to type npx create React app and then specify the project name. So I want to create styled component. So I'm just going to say style comp. When I press enter, this command is going to create simple React project inside this tutorial folder. Now once you have your successful message, just enter into your project and then type a command npm start to start the project. So I'm going to just clear the screen, and first I'm going to say cd style component. So I'm going to enter into my current project directory, and then I'm going to say npm start to start this project in the live server. So this command is going to start the development server. On the localhost 3000, you'll get your React application. Now let me toggle this window on the left side and my VS Code on the right side. I'm going to open my project, and inside the source folder, I have my React components. I'm going to open the app.js. Let me get rid of this HTML code, this header section, and here I'm going to simply create h1 heading tag, and here I'm going to say styled component. When I save the changes, Now let me show you the difference between a simple standard CSS and the style component. I'm going to back to the app.css, and right here I'm going to get rid of all this CSS code because we are not using it. And to this app here, I'm going to first specify height, which is 100 viewport height, then specify display, which is going to be flex direction. Flex direction is going to be column. Then I'm going to specify justify content center and align items center. I want to center this content, so I'm going to add all the CSS styling and save the changes. So when I save the changes, you can see I have my style component center at the document. Just for that, let me specify font family. So I'm going to copy and import the font family link here in my CSS, and then I'm going to select all the descendant elements, and then I'm going to specify font family Poppins. You all know how to specify font family using Google Font website. Now just for that, what I want to style this h1 heading tag. I can do that easily with CSS. For example, if I select this app class and inside this I have h1 heading tag, I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to specify font size, which is going to be 3em. Then I'm going to specify color. So I'm going to specify some RGB color here, something like this. And just out of that, I'm going to specify background color, and I'm going to specify RGB color here as well. So I'm going to specify background color, and at the end I'm going to specify padding. So padding is going to be 1em to the top and bottom and 2em to the left and right. Let me save the changes. That's super easy to specify CSS styling to the HTML element, right? Now the problem here is you select your h1 heading tag using CSS selectors. This CSS selector is going to select all the h1 heading tag descendant of app class and specify all this styling to it. So if you want to specify individual style to this h1 heading tag, then you have to add class or ID to this h1 heading tag and then specify style to it. But that is not the case with style components. Style components generate unique class name for all your style classes. You never have to worry about duplication, overlap, or misspellings. So let's take a look at how you can specify the same styling using style component. So to use style component in the React project, you have to install a library called style component. So you just have to open a terminal, open a new tab, enter into your project. So just type cd style component. Once you are in your project directory, just type npm node package manager I for install and then specify here style -components. Make sure you have s after the components. When you press enter, this statement is going to install style component library in your project. Now keep in mind, at the time of recording this video, I'm using the latest version of style component, which is 5.3.3. Now let me just clear the screen, back to my first bash shell, close this terminal tab, and here I'm going to just import styled from style components. So I'm going to just import this style object from this style component library, and then here I'm going to create a variable constant title is equal to, then I'm going to call this style dot, and then you can see you have a bunch of HTML elements here, right? So using style component, you can style any of these HTML elements. So let's select this h1, and then I'm going to specify style to it. Now there are two different ways you can style h1 heading tag, using a template tag literal syntax or using style object. Let me specify styling to this h1 heading tag using tag template literal syntax. So here I'm going to call tag template literal syntax, something like this, and inside this I'm going to say color colon and then pass RGB color here. So I'm going to just grab the RGB color right from here and specify that here, something like this. Just specify colon, and now that's it. This is going to specify this color to this h1 heading tag, right? But that is not going to happen. Let me just comment this CSS, save this file, and save this file as well. You can see you will not get anything. This is because you specify style to this h1 HTML element. but you specify that style to this title variable. So if you want to apply this styling, you have to use this variable, or you can say you have to use this component. Style component is going to create a React components and specify style to it. So this title is a type of React component. So you can simply copy this and specify that here, something like this. So this is going to create React component, and you have this styling to this React component. When I save the changes, you can see you're going to have this color to your h1 heading tag. Now this is a type of template literal syntax. Alternatively, you can use the style object as well. For example, let me just get rid of this code. And if you want to use object style to specify styling to your React component, then you can simply pass here parentheses, pass here object, and inside this, you can pass your styling. But as you know, when you pass object, you will get a key and value. Make sure the value is a type of string. So just grab it and specify that in the double quote, something like this. Save the changes and you will get the same result. So you will have two different ways to specify style to your React component. I'm using the template style literal syntax to specify styling to all my React component. Both syntax are identical. Now you might ask me, what is the difference between standard CSS and this style component and this style component? Right now, both are identical. So let's take a look at the benefit of using style component. So as you know, in CSS, we can simply style the React component using HTML element. But using style component, you can enhance the power of CSS. Using style component, you can use props as well. You can pass a function that we can interpolation in the style component. Let me show you what I want to say. Let's suppose here we have button. So for example, let's say if I create here button component, and inside that I have here using props. Now as you can see, when I save the changes, React is going to return the compile error. Now because button is not defined in the React application, you will get an error message. But what if I create here a button class? So if I just copy this button and create a constant variable button, when I save the changes, you can see this is not going to return any error. This is because the style component is going to create this button React component, pass style to it, and return as a React component. So you don't have to worry about creating a new component in React. This is simply going to specify and create a new component and render it. And if you inspect this, then you can see inside your app, you have h1 heading tag. This is because you can see here, we styled the h1 heading tag in our code. So what you have to do is, instead of h1, here if I select button, when I save the changes, you can see now I have here button element. And to this button element, I have this color. You can notice. So this statement is not only going to specify style to the HTML element, but it can also create a new React component and render it. Now let's take a look at how we can use interpolation in style component. So let's suppose you have a button with some text, and what I want to create two different buttons with two different styling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply first specify styling to the primary button. So for example, if I specify here font size 3 em, then if I specify here padding 1 em to the top and bottom and 2 em to the left and right, when I save the changes, this is going to add font size and padding with the color property to this button. And just for that, I want to create two different buttons using the same style. I can simply use here interpolation, or you can say the style component properties. For example, I'm going to just simply add here background and then specify here colon. Now what I want two different buttons, primary and secondary. To both these buttons, I have different backgrounds. So what we can do is we can simply create a function inside this CSS styling. This is the benefit of using style component. We can add here a function inside this styling. If I add here a $sign, then pass curly braces. If I say here props, then pass here arrow, then this is a type of arrow function. Inside this, I'm going to say props dot primary, pass here question mark, and then I'm going to specify here two values. So I'm going to just specify here ternary operator and pass true and false value here, something like this. So if we have true in this condition, it's going to execute this first value, otherwise pass this second value to this background property. Let me save the changes first and show you the result. When I save the changes, you can see I have the second value to this background. This is because we don't have this primary property to this button. But if we specify this primary property to this button, and when I save the changes, you can see now we have this first true value to this button. So as you can see, we can easily change the background color of the button using React property. And then if you want, just out of this syntax, you can just simply specify here border none and border radius 20 pixel. As you can see, you're going to have these properties to this button. So now you have two different buttons using the same CSS styling. So if I create here two different buttons with primary and without primary property, then you can see you're going to have two different React components here. You don't have to worry about creating a new style for the new component. With just one line of CSS code, or you can say the style component code, you can generate two different buttons. You may add multiple conditions inside this function and specify your own styling to this React component. That's upon you. Now once we understand that we can create a function inside CSS using style component, let me show you how we can extend this styling. As you know, in CSS, we can use the style of the base component, or you can say the base class, and inherit it, or you can say override it and specify a new properties to it. Now we can do the same thing in style component. For example, let's say you want to use all this styling, but you also want to add some additional styling to your new React component, then you can do that as well. For example, as you know, in inheritance, we use the base styling and extend it with the new features. So for example, here, if I create a constant variable, inheritance button, or you can say inherit button is equal to, then I'm going to call here styled. This time, instead of calling a new element, I'm going to call here parenthesis. At the top, you can see I have here a button element inside this button component. This time, I'm just going to inherit the previous button component. So instead of using this button here inside this style, I'm going to specify this button component, something like this. So now I'm going to inherit all the features of this component inside this inherit component. Now just out of that, I'm going to specify here template tag syntax, and then inside this, I'm going to simply specify my CSS styling, something like this. Now let me save the changes, and instead of this button, this time I'm going to use inherit button, something like this. When I save the changes, as you can see, now I'm going to have this styling to this second button. So I'm just going to inherit the same style with the additional CSS styling. And now if I use here primary, I can simply create 3 different buttons with just a few lines of CSS code. Now let me show you the different syntax of using this inherit class. Let's say you don't want to use this second component inside your project. You just want to use this first component, something like this. But you want to use the style of this second component inside this first one. Then you can simply use here a property called as is equal to, and inside curly braces, you can simply pass here inherit button. When you save the changes, you can see you're going to have this styling to the second button. Now let me show you how you can style a different style component. So for example, let's say you have a component called link inside your React project. So for example, let's say you have your link component with class name and children parameter, and inside that you have an anchor tag with the class name parameter, and inside this anchor tag you have the children parameter. Now what if I use this React component inside this project? So for example, if I get rid of both this component right from here, and if I add here link, and here I'm going to say unstyle, let me duplicate this, and here I'm going to create style. Let me save the changes. You can see I don't have any styling to both this component. This is because I don't have any styling to this link component. To add styling to this link component, I can simply create a new variable here, constant styled link is equal to, and then I'm going to call here style variable, and here inside this parenthesis, I'm going to specify the component name, which is link. So I'm going to pass this component name here, link. Here I'm going to simply pass the CSS styling. As you can notice, when I save the changes, oops, I think I misspelled something. Yeah, I just have to write this code at the top before this statement, because so we need to create this variable, this link variable, before we use it. So I'm going to put this function before this statement right up here, save the changes, and now you can see you have the result. And now what I want, instead of this link, I can just simply pass here style link. Oops, we need to start the component with the capital letter. Here I'm going to start this S with a capital letter, something like this. Style link, I'm going to grab and specify that here as well. Save the changes. And as you can see, I'm going to have the styling of the CSS to this link. That's easy, right? So for example, let's say you have inbuilt React component, or you create your own React component using React functional component. Then you just have to specify the name of that React component and pass that inside this style method. And then you can simply specify the styling you want to that component. Now the next question comes in, how you can create pseudo selectors inside style components. Style components use stylish preprocessor. So we can write Sass-like syntax for automatically nesting styles. If you don't know about Sass, then I have a dedicated video on it. You can check out that video from the top right corner of the screen or from the description. Now what I want to add hover effect to this link using style component. To do that, I can just simply use Sass-like syntax. For example, if I want to add hover effect to this link, then I can simply pass here ampersand, colon, hover, and then pass here curly braces, something like this. And then I can pass here any CSS code. For example, if I specify here color black, save the changes. When I hover on this link, you can see this is going to create hover effect on this anchor tag. Not only this, you can use any CSS pseudo selector like you use in Sass. You can also create a nested style as well. So I hope you understand how we can use style component to style and create React components. This tutorial is just for the beginners to understand how style component work. If you want me to create advanced tutorial on style component, then let me know in the comment section. If you find anything useful, don't forget to press the like button, share this video with your friends, subscribe for more latest videos. That is all for now. I will see you in the next one.